Hello, my name is Talip Küçükcan. I welcome you to the TRT World Forum Digital Debates. Today, we are going to talk about the legacy of late Jamal Khashoggi, what he represented, how he was killed, why he was killed, and the trial that followed later on. Today, we have three guests. Ms. Agnes Kalamart, she is UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Summary or Arbitrary Executions. Our second guest is Professor Yasin Aktay. He is an advisor to the chairman of the AK Party, and also he was member of the Turkish Parliament. And also Mr. Rasul Serdar Aktaş joins us. He's a senior fellow at the TRT World Research Center. Let me begin with you, Agnes, because you were involved in the trial issues, and also you have made strong statements on that. You said the trial in Saudi Arabia has been a mockery of justice. Why do you classify it as such? What are the main reasons that you classified it as a mockery?
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to this show. I've said that it was a mockery of justice because from January 2019 up to September 2020, we have seen a number of actions taken by the prosecutor and the judge, which undermine greatly the fairness of the trial. Let me highlight just a few of them. First, the trial was held behind closed door, even though it is an issue and a trial that was of incredible public interest internationally. Second, the identity of those being indicted and accused was not released, even though in Saudi Arabia they are making exceptions to the rule of privacy, particularly in very high-profile political trials, but they did not apply that exception to this particular trial. Thirdly, all those indicted were at a fairly low level in the chain of command. So no one within the group of individuals that had commissioned, ordered, incited, or organized the trial from Riyadh were worried. And indeed, when it came to the sentencing, the only individuals that received heavy sentence were really the hitmen, and all those that had a higher level of authority, including in terms of their rank in the security services, those people did not get any sentence at all or much lighter one. And finally, just a final point, as I have shown in my report and investigation, this crime was a crime under in violation of international law. It was, of course, a crime against Jamal Khashoggi, but it was also a crime against Turkey, a crime against the United States. It was a violation of a number of international conventions, Convention on Enforced Disappearance, Convention against Torture, Convention regarding consular relations. It was a violation of the UN Charter. In other words, it was a crime of an international dimension, and it was a state crime. And yet, at no point during the trial in Saudi Arabia were those issues even considered or discussed. And that to me was
We lost your voice, Agnes. We cannot hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Can you please? Yeah. Can you repeat your last observation, because I think got lost. We couldn't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was saying that this to me was the most important problem, limitation with the trial. It failed to consider the responsibility of the state. It failed to consider that this was a trial of a crime of an international nature, and it failed to consider the chain of command and the identity of those who ordered the crime was never revealed.
Well, thank you very much. I think we will come to the other aspects of the trial and also the responsibility of the state actors in Saudi Arabia. Now, let me move on to Professor Aktay, who was also personally, I think, influenced, because Jamal Khashoggi was his good friend, and I think when he was in Turkey, somehow they had talked earlier. Now, I would like to ask him more personal things as far as the legacy of Khashoggi is concerned. Professor Aktay, you knew him quite well personally. Can you tell us more about him a little bit, and especially his views on the Arab world, what he represented, what was his main arguments and views and expectations for the whole region?
Thank you very much for organizing this meeting and in this program. And Jamal Khashoggi was, of course, a man of dignity. Personally, if you ask me about his personality, he was really very, very good friend and very nice man. And he was a good friend for me and for many people, not only for me. He has very good circle in Istanbul and everywhere, where he was very sympathetic, and where his behavior was very his manner was very high quality friendship, and very sincerity was one of his most important and prominent character. He was very sincere, and he was. These are his part of his personality, features of his personality, and also this personality was being reflected on his job, also on his profession. That he was a journalist, and he was a truth seeker, and wherever he wanted to work, he has his values. He was not making his journalism without any value, and he had a case, and his case was especially for the Muslim world in general, or for the Arab world in particular, or more particular for Saudi Arabia, to raise the flag, to raise the level of human rights, the level of human honor, and the level of democracy, of course. And in general, when we look from this point of view, he was, especially during the recent developments in the Middle East, we talk about the Arab Spring. In the Arab Spring, he had found very, very good, very strong light of hope to change the world in which we are all suffering from. We are suffering from the lack of democracy, from the absence of democracy, from the violations, and very, very routine violations of human rights. And human dignity has no any value in this region. It is violated by the governments and by the dictators here. So when
Professor Aktay, can I ask more specific questions? Because he was well received within the royal family. I mean, he had very good relations, very close relations in the Saudi royal family. But all of a sudden, things have changed. I mean, what was the reason for falling out with the royal family? Because he was assassinated, and he was
actually he was not an incident by essence at the beginning, and he was part of the royal family, as you mentioned. Yes, he was. And his relationship, he was an advisor and consultant to many princes in the family. But this advice and the recommendation or the ideas that he was producing and he was introducing to them were always in positive way, and to advise them something about in the development of Saudi Arabia in positive direction. But of course, he was realistic in one other aspect, in one other sense, because he knew that the dynasty of Saudi dynasty is impossible to go beyond, and so he should go on with them, and he should, whatever he might do in Saudi Arabia would be done together, or in the consent of the Saudi family. So he was not, for example, opposing them directly, or he was not criticizing them directly in media. Just on the contrary, whenever we were meeting, for example, sometimes we were hearing from him something very, very positive about the Saudi family. But I think these had started to change, especially after the stand taken by the Saudi Arabia against the Arab Spring, especially the counter-revolutions which took place in Egypt. This was a sort of breakthrough with his relationship with Saudi Arabia. But afterwards, this shift has deepened, but especially when the Saudi family, especially after the death of Abdullah, he was hoping much more about the developments or about the change in Saudi family, but he was disappointed when even the traditions were broken by the crown prince or the new king changed all the traditions about the circulation of the position of the power.
Well, thank you very much for this context that you provided, actually, what happened within the Middle East and then how the transformation was taking place and his role. Now, if you let me, I just would like to look at some of the political implications with Rasul Sardar Atash, because he's been also following the case since it has started. Rasul, Saudi Arabia continues to face international criticism over the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, even after the completion of the trial. But it seems like that there haven't been significant and important repercussions. Can we say that Saudi Arabia, and more specifically MBS, got away with this murder?
Well, traditionally, the distribution of the power has been the customary law in the country, in Saudi Arabia. So when I say the customary law or the distribution of the power, I mean I will regard Saudi Arabia as a kind of family company, and that family company has a executive board, and the prominent figures of the royal family are the members of this executive board. So, and the power is being distributed among them. Yes, being king is very much important, but that doesn't mean that everything else is under the control of the king himself, because they have to keep the balance between the relationships of the family members. So around that table, that executive table, all of these executive members will have some of the executive powers. For example, one of the prominent figure of the family, the dynasty, will be the head of the land forces or the head of the intelligence service, or the other one being the head of the navy or the naval, the air forces, and the other one will rather take care of Aramco. So in that sense, they are making sure that there is going to be no one who can take over all of the power and create a monopoly over this power. This customary law has been valid for Saudi Arabia since the founding King Abdulaziz. For the first time, there has been another one in the country, a rising star, that almost got the same executive power as his grandfather had, as the founding King Abdulaziz had. And his name is MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. So he is someone who is controlling everything now in the country. He's officially the Minister of Defense. He's the head of Aramco, which traditionally, the Aramco in Saudi Arabia will be someone, an executive outside of the dynasty. But for the first time, someone in the dynasty itself, the crown prince, is heading Aramco. So which means that he is controlling the economy. And by being the Minister of Defense, controlling almost all the security apparatus. And by being the deputy prime minister, he's the executive power regarding to all of that appointment of high level of the bureaucrats. And being the crown prince also is giving him another executive power over any member of the dynasty and over all the affairs of the country. So Mohammed bin Salman, in 2017, when he gathered all of the high-level members of the dynasty and even the ministers in Saudi Arabia into that very much famous hotel, he showed the world and the internal players that Saudi Arabia is a tribe and he is the absolute chief of this tribe. The time of distribution of the power is over. That I'm the only chief and everyone has to accept this. So within the country, there is no one anymore that could replace Mohammed bin Salman. So in that sense, he's very much secured. Yes, he got away from any kind of, he got away from the murder of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and he got away from even much bigger disasters. Internationally, it's completely up to the USA. Let's be realistic and honest in this case. It's not about any other power.
Rasul, we will come to the international aspect of that murder and the trial. Actually, if you allow me, I'd like to move on to Agnes again, because she's been following the case right from the beginning. As we recall, Saudi Arabia denied the role of its people in the murder of the Khashoggi in the beginning, as you would remember. But when the evidence came out, they said, yes, there were some people who, were involved in the murder, but they had acted on will, I would say. Agnes, do you think that the Saudi Arabia was willing to really try these people because of the rule of law that they believe in, or because there was an international pressure for the trial? What's your take?
I don't know. This will be a guesswork. They did hold the trial, so let's give them at least, let's recognize that they at least did something, whether it was to please the powerful friends, or whether it was out of a sense of duty for Jamal Khashoggi. I can't, I really cannot determine. The fact that the trial was held is a positive step, I will say. The fact that it was held under conditions that it was held is, of course, a negative one. The presence of the international monitors, the 5 member country of the Security Council, is kind of indicative that they were doing that for that particular audience. They clearly were not doing it for domestic or international audience, since no one was allowed in the trial. So I think it's probably a mixture of two. They felt that they had to do it, maybe domestically, but they certainly were also keen to demonstrate to the most powerful countries internationally that they were taking some steps. I will have to add that by giving or attributing to those countries, so we're talking here China, Russia, the United Kingdom, the US, and France, a place at the trial, in my view, they basically made them complicit in the miscarriage of justice that occurred afterwards.
Right. I think I would like to ask you about the people who were convicted and then imprisoned, or those who were tried. As you said, there is no transparency, and also the concept of accountability doesn't apply to countries like Saudi Arabia. What's your view on that? Do you think these 8 people were really guilty? I mean, what were the evidence? Whether you were convinced by the arguments of the trial?
Are you asking me?
Yes, because you were dealing with the legal aspects of the trial more.
So I do know the identity of those that were accused. I have done sufficient investigation myself to believe that those that have been found guilty were indeed responsible for perpetrating aspects of the crime. The fact that they have also been named and indicted by the Turkish prosecutor do highlight a commonality of conclusions between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. So I don't have doubt that those individuals were involved in the crimes, and I don't have doubt that some of them actually killed Jamal Khashoggi. They smothered him, they strangled him, whatever they've done to him, and then dismembered him. Clearly, those individuals did that. My problem with the trial is that it failed to consider who commissioned the crime. And I have to say, when it comes to killings of journalists, if you only go for the hitman, you are missing the important political dimension of the killing of the journalist. You are missing the elements linked to corruption, abuse of power, which are very likely to be behind the killing of the journalist. And you know, a trial, an investigation that only looked at the hitmen and failed to consider those that commissioned the crimes is really making a big disservice to the whole media community, because we need to use those trials to send a strong message. And if those that ordered the crime are not put on the dock, then the message is not strong.
I think that's a very clear and strong message, to focus on those who really ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, not only the hitman, but who was behind this project, in a sense. Yasin Aktay, I just would like to ask you a question that might have some impact on the trial, actually. It was reported in the press that the Khashoggi's children received financial compensation from the Saudi regime for their father's killing, and his sons now live in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that this has influenced the outcome of the trial, in a sense, because the children of the Khashoggi was there and then they received compensation? You know, some sort of deal maybe was made between the two parties. What's your take on that?
Of course, it is. I think it is an abuse and misuse of some Islamic legal principles or ways or rules, because there are some cases, of course, in Islam that, you know, the qisas or the deal is sometimes is a solution, and it is bring some solution to make peace between two parts, for example. But there is no two parts here to be considered in terms of Islamic law. The context of Islamic law is very, very different, and it is abused in this sense. Of course, if you want to legitimize yourself within the country, or to make the world convince the world that we tried them and we punished the guilties, it is to save the appearance. I mean, as it is said in Turkish, "Zawahiri kurtarmak," to save the appearance. But you cannot. Everybody was everything was clear. And the compensation, which was or the deal which was made in between, there is no two parts, three parts. There should be at least 2, 3 and equal parts. There is not such parts in this case. You know, there are some people who are nobody knows about their situation, about their conditions, whether they are, for example, they are free to act in this or another way, and because they were restricted even from traveling, and the sons of Jamal Khashoggi were restricted from traveling to United States, because even if he traveled, and these are very usual behaviors, usual conducts of Saudi Arabia. For example, they take some members of the family in order to threat the rest of the family, for example, and force them to behave in this, to act in this or another way. That is the usual the usual conduct of Saudi Arabia, or the MBS, especially, not to say Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has some other very respectful history of not to condemn or not to criticize all the Saudi Arabia history, these illegal activities. But in this case, the victim, Jamal Khashoggi, was killed deliberately and by out of a plan. Even if Islamic law, if somebody is killed by in this way, all the people who are involved are guilty, especially those who ordered this crime, of course. Otherwise, you can say, of course, kill whoever you want and pay some compensation and get free. It is not the way, and just a fair and just way.
Right. Now, maybe we can come to a point where this incident played a role in the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States of America, because U.S. is supposed to be champion of human rights, protection of journalism and free speech. Rasul Sardar, what do you think about the implications of this murder as far as the relations between Saudi Arabia and the U.S. is concerned? The second part of the question is that what happens after the elections? If Trump wins, what will happen? If Joe Biden wins, what will be the shape of the relations between the two countries?
The relationship between the kingdom and the USA is very much unique. Since the first meeting between the founding King Abdulaziz and Franklin Roosevelt on Suez Channel, there has been an agreement between two countries that the US is going to be the security provider to the kingdom, while the kingdom is going to secure the energy flow to the West. That's the deal. And almost all of the kings in Saudi Arabia has been loyal to this one, with one exception, that was King Faisal, and he has been killed in 1975. So if you want to be king in Saudi Arabia, you need to get the support from three different sources. The first one is support of the dynasty, and the second one is the support of the religious clerics in the country, or the Salafi clerics. And the third one is the support from Washington, D.C. But if you have unconditional support from Washington, D.C., you can't forget about two other supports. So Washington is the determinative capital in the way of being the king in the country. So there is no other capital that unfortunately could have any influence over the dynasty or the internal and international politics of the kingdom, except Washington, D.C. So in this sense, Washington, D.C., as the current management or the current administration, is very much keen to see Mohammed bin Salman as the king in the country, and it has provided unconditional support to Mohammed bin Salman. I think it's very much closely related to the geopolitics, because as far as I can see, Washington projection after the uprising, the Arab uprising or the Arab Spring, has been geopoliticized regarding to the region. Arab Spring had lots of geopolitical surprises that for the USA created many of the complications. I think for the USA, the geopolitical calculations in the Washington, D.C., they forecasted that keeping the status quo in the region is safer than the democratic systems being established and successful in the Middle East region. So for that, they needed to create an axis. And that axis required the financial support, the financial flows from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Kingdom, and plus, as a democratic force, Egypt. So for that, by that time, remember that Mohammed bin Nayef was the crown prince, and he was the dear boy of Washington. He was the man who was organizing all of the counter-terrorism organizations after the 9/11 attacks. He was very much dear to Washington. But Washington gave up on him because Mohammed bin Nayef and Mohammed bin Zayed of Emiratis, they were not in good terms. So in Emiratis, Washington could not replace Mohammed bin Zayed, but in Saudi Arabia, it was optional, and they could replace him with Mohammed bin Salman, who is not going to have any problem with Mohammed bin Zayed. So to keep United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt together, Mohammed bin Salman has been the only option for Washington. And then the world witnessed the rising of Mohammed bin Salman. And even, that famous show, which is called 60 Minutes, the producers of the show, after an interview with Mohammed bin Salman, the producer of 60 Minutes was saying that he is like Franklin Roosevelt or like Reagan. He is giving the dreams to a nation. Just remember all of these praises. So for now, as long as Washington's geopolitical calculation regarding to the MENA region stays same or favoring the status quo in the region, I don't think that is going to be any trouble in the relationship between Washington and Saudi Arabia. So killing of Jamal Khashoggi, so far, maybe through the media or as the public perception, has been negatively affected. But practically, if you look at that, there has been no deterioration of the relationship between Kingdom and United States.
Right. I think it seems that what I understand from your arguments is that no matter who wins, I think the status quo of the relationship will continue between Saudi Arabia and the United States of America. Now, I would like to move on to Agnes, again, with regard to the international community's role.
I was wondering whether I could react to the previous speaker and question. I do agree that when it comes to the tangible impact, it has been negligible. Saudi Arabia has been an extremely central actor in the foreign policy of Donald Trump. And in fact, in a very recent interview, Donald Trump did say that he saved Mohammed bin Salman in the context of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. So, from the standpoint of the White House, nothing has changed. However, from the standpoint of other institutions in the United States, particularly the Congress, it is very clear that there are increasingly strong views held against the place of Saudi Arabia in the American foreign policy. Let's not forget that the Congress voted on a bipartisan basis to demand the release of the CIA assessment of the responsibility of Mohammed bin Salman and an embargo on the weapon sold to Saudi Arabia. All of those demands were vetoed by the White House, but by so doing, President Trump undermined the democratic process of the United States. So I just think we need to maybe bring a bit more modulation to our assessment. I think that within the American Congress, on a bipartisan basis, there are strong views held against Saudi Arabia. And I attended recently a hearing at the Senate with the Intelligence Committee, and there I was very surprised to hear several senators state quite clearly that in their view, Saudi Arabia was not as central to national security as some people seem to believe. Now, it's not linked only to Jamal Khashoggi by no means, but I do think that if there is a change to the White House on the 4th of November, I think Saudi Arabia may not be in such a strong position as it is right now in terms of the support it is receiving.
Rasul Sardar, would you like to respond to Agnes?
I think the Senate's attitude toward Mohammed bin Salman is rather related to the internal domestic politics of the USA. It's not against Mohammed bin Salman, but rather a power struggle between Trump's administration and the Democrats. So just remember that when Barack Obama was the president of the USA, he was criticizing the policies of the Republicans in the country. But when he got on the power, when he established the administration himself, he also had to keep the continuation of the foreign policy in that sense. I think regarding to that, if the Democrats wins the next election, there's not going to be any tangible, concrete steps being taken against Mohammed bin Salman, because there is no one that can replace Mohammed bin Salman in the country. And I think it is not only about Donald Trump, but it is about the United States as a whole. Not having Mohammed bin Salman as the king of Saudi Arabia means that you are not going to be able to keep the alliance between United Arab Emirates and Egypt. And plus, of course, another factor is Israel. Israel is waiting for a leader who is going to publicly recognize its existence and openly supports the diplomatic relations with Israel. And now, finally, they got their boy. So it's about the geopolitics as well. So I think the United States doesn't matter whether it's being administrated by Trump, by the Republicans or the Democrats, they need to keep the geopolitics as a whole.
Well, I think it seems that here that a murder case, is being held hostage by the international politics. Unfortunately, the regional calculations. Now, I would like to come back to Agnes again about the role of the international community. you have indicated that we are now concentrating on the hitman, those who were tried, but there is a scene behind that. I mean, those who really ordered the killing, and there must be some sort of a call for justice for these people as well. I mean, what would be the role of the international community to bring these people to justice, if that is possible? What are the constraints? What are the power and instruments that we have as international community?
Look, I think it depends what you mean by the role of the international community. Clearly, the individuals that are responsible for ordering the crime are either in the government or indeed are quasi-head of state, benefiting from some degree of immunity. So it is going to be very difficult to hold them to account in a formal way. The kind of formal justice that you may speaking about only happen in a context of transformation of the regimes. That's what happened in the case of General Pinochet, for instance. So I think these are very long-term objectives, unless something radically different occurs. But the international community has other means of pressure, which are not through a judicial mechanism, although they could, in my view, apply universal jurisdiction to the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. I know this is a rather different approach to universal jurisdiction, but this is something personally I have argued. But I think the best means of justice are political and are diplomatic and are financial or cultural. So what can and what has the international community done? They certainly can impose individual sanctions, including focusing on the assets that are held abroad, and including in those sanctions very high-level members of the governments, including Mohammed bin Salman. As long as he is not head of state, his assets can still be targeted. So that's one thing. Second, the international community can withdraw from some high-level meetings. I have in mind the G20. Currently, there are at least three mayors of major cities, New York, Los Angeles, and Paris, who have announced that they will be boycotting the G20, the G20 meeting for cities, and that's very important. And I hope others are going to follow suit. So there can be some kind of diplomatic pressure placed on Saudi Arabia. It's not a form of formal justice, but it does send a clear signal, I think, not just to Saudi Arabia, but to other states, other head of state who may be tempted to use force and killings of journalists. Let's never forget that what we're doing here is also trying to protect others in the future from the action and the abuse of power by governments. So those diplomatic signals, those political signals, are part of making people understand that there is a cost associated with killing a journalist.
I think what you have said is the ideal, maybe, solution or ideal steps. But how realistic are you in terms of putting political or economic pressure or diplomatic pressure on heads of states in the Middle East?
Well, it's happening. It's not. I'm giving you examples because they are happening at the moment. So we cannot suggest that nothing has happened when it comes to Saudi Arabia. There have been on and off political decisions taken by the European Parliament, by Germany at some point, by Canada at some point. It's not as strong as we will want them to be, but it is political pressure. 2 weeks ago, 33 states at the Human Rights Council, at the UN, adopted a resolution against Saudi Arabia. You know, this doesn't happen on a regular basis, but it has happened a lot since the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. These are political messages, these are diplomatic messages, and even in a world of very pragmatic and economic interest, those are important signals, and they demonstrate that such act as killing Jamal had a cost. The fact that the mayor of the 3 largest cities in the world are boycotting the meeting in Riyadh, that too is an important signal. And we need to keep putting pressure on the international community so that it does act in that way. So I am being realistic. What I am saying is that organizing a trial where you will find Mohammed bin Salman and a few others facing the judge, that to me is unrealistic at that point.
Right. I think what you have said is promising in terms of restoring the credibility of the UN or other international bodies when they put pressure of such kind. Now, Professor Aktay, you live in Turkey. You are a member of the parliament. You are a public figure, and everybody's asking you a question. You know, the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. That murder took place in Istanbul in the consulate of Saudi Arabia, but it was in Turkey. To what extent that incident impacted the relations between Saudi Arabia and Turkey?
Of course, these relationships were impacted by this fact. It is no doubt about this. But let me first add to this about this trial. How that took place in Saudi Arabia, of course, as I agreed completely with Agnes about the impossibility of setting in any way justice in Saudi Arabia about these people who had committed this crime. Because first, the usual suspect is in Saudi Arabia, and the usual suspect has the power to control all the process of trial. So it's impossible to set any justice without, for example, making him resign from his position. Otherwise, he's controlling all the process of all the institutions of the legal institutions. So the judicial institutions. So it's impossible to set this. But the only way to set the justice is in Turkey, and Turkey has that chance and that possibility because Turkey, by its very nature, is neutral, and this incident took place in Turkey, in Turkish land, and in Istanbul, and all. And this is also violation of the sovereignty of Turkey in another way. And so Turkey has not only the right but also the responsibility of trying these people. But everybody knows, and the logic, even the naked logic, the very very simple logic is telling us that those 15 guys who are official guys who cannot decide and who cannot do anything without the permission and without the order of their upper position, of course. So Turkey, of course, is following and is seeking for these questions, and Turkey is still seeking for who did order this crime took place in Istanbul. When nobody can convince us that these 15 or 18 guys came from their own decision for their own sake, came to Turkey and to commit such a very complicated and action, which is it is very very clear that it has been planned in all its details. So, as for the question about the relationship of Turkey and Saudi Arabia, of course, it is not as used to be before that incident. And Turkey took very ethical and principled stand against in the face of this event, and it didn't approach and it didn't accept any way of negotiations and to, for example, to forgive or to give up seeking for the justice in this issue. And we should thank really very, we are all thankful in the name of justice, of course, in the name of democracy, in the name of transparency, in the name of all the human values. We are very thankful to Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is, of course, behind this decision, because we know that he was offered some deals, and he rejected, he refused to approach to even to consider such. He said this is something else, and Turkey and Saudi Arabian relations are something else, of course. And we cannot sell the justice. We cannot give up these principle, justice principle, for the sake of getting some, for example, advantages, etc. But if he did this, of course, he will be in very. I mean, nobody will remember him in this case in positive way, of course. But now I think everybody is appreciating in the world this stand, because it's a very difficult stand. We know we were discussing, and Agnes and Resul Serdar discussed, and there is discussed about the context of such issues. Everybody is very pragmatic. I mean, the international relations are taking place in very pragmatical context, in a very pragmatical way. And somebody, for example, would like to approach this issue in very pragmatical and opportunist way, as Trump approached it. Of course, for example, he took it as an opportunity to make much more advantage from this. But when we say if this just, I think a price has already been paid by MBS. I don't think that the justice has forever gone, and nothing has been gained in this way. No, I think this the stand of Turkey and the principle, I mean, insistence on justice and the principles has caused the MBS paying very high price. When you say, for example, his prestige was broken, he is not prestigious as used to be from before that incident. You know, many other crimes that he was already committing in a very routine way, and which were not heard by anybody, now are known by everybody. For example, people who are imprisoned, who are put in jail for nothing, for their ideas, just for their political positions. Now hundreds of intellectual positions, and even the members of the dynasty are put in jail just because they are not even opponents. They are just alternative. They are not potential alternative. And but these are damaging and breaking the prestige, and also not only the prestige, also the credibility of MBS. That MBS is winning. MBS is now free from paying a very high price for this. And just to complete in one word, I think Khashoggi's ghost, or Khashoggi's spirit, is already following them to make them put in the justice.
Well, right. Thank you very much. I think there is a general consensus that his image has been tarnished by this horrible incident, that he is still believed to be behind the maybe scenes. But now, Rasul, let me raise this question with you, because Mohammed bin Salman has been presented as a reformer, as someone who is reforming the country's old traditions and old system and opening it to the world outside. This is the image that we see, especially in the Western media. But also, it is reported by the media all over the world that activists are detained. Well-known clerics, journalists, and senior members of the ruling family were jailed in Saudi Arabia. And these are all in the headlines. How do these fit into his vision of reforming the country today? Because he is seen as a reformist. That's why he is sometimes, seen as someone who justifies everything, whatever he does, because he's a reformist. That's what the image is being built these days.
Okay, so just before coming to the image of Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia as a kingdom, I would just like to say that for now, Egypt, UAE, and Israel are the primary regional allies of the kingdom. And through looking through their perspective, there is no need for any replacement of Mohammed bin Salman, and there is no regional country in MENA that would risk their relationships for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, because every country is too fragile, and all of the dynamics of the regions are too fragile, and Saudi Arabia is too big to be lost. And MBS is too good, too generous to be given up for Washington and Tel Aviv. We need to see these geopolitics realities. And Mohammed bin Salman himself, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, they are justifying all of the inhumane actions over the activists, over for those people who are demanding democracy, for the change, and for a life that has a dignity, oppressed on the pretext of fighting against Islamic extremism, which this rhetoric is being bowed tremendously by the Western power centers, because it is a monster, and Mohammed bin Salman or Mohammed bin Zayed and Sisi of Egypt are the actors who are able to feed and control the monster. So when it comes to the image of Saudi Arabia, I think for the kingdom, it has been a long time that the kingdom left any concerns regarding to its image. As long as geopolitics is going well, as long as the economic relations with the West are good, so the concerns regarding to their image or the morality are not among the chief concerns. So Mohammed bin Salman wants no interference and no criticism from inside. Unfortunately, for the West, they like the modernization, but they fail short. See that what Mohammed bin Salman is doing is modernization, not democratizing the country. So democratization is something else, while modernizations could be very much happen or being conducted in oppressive ways. Mohammed bin Salman is an oppressive modernist, but definitely not a democrat.
Right. Okay. My last question goes to Agnes. Given the reality and the discussions that we have had here, and also the trial that you have been following since the beginning, do you think that the truth behind Khashoggi's killing will ever be revealed, or it is just sealed? The truth behind the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, do you think we will have any revelations? It will be revealed.
Look, it
truly?
It depends what you mean by truth. I think a lot has been revealed already by the media, particularly at the beginning, by the Turkish government, and through the Turkish trial, more truth will be revealed. I personally think it is very important that the CIA assessment of MBS responsibilities be made public, and I hope that eventually that will happen, either in a formal way or maybe informally, maybe because of changes in the White House or through other means. That will be part of providing truth. And there are still people continuing to investigate. There are still trials that will be happening in the United States. We still need to find out the location of the remains of Jamal Khashoggi. So that's part of an issue that I think a lot of people are going to keep demanding answer for. Some people may speak up, they who haven't done so. So yes, absolutely. Truth and facts are, can be a long-term process. In the work I do in the human rights field, many crimes get to find their perpetrators decades after they have happened. Many truths are being uncovered years after the crime occurred. So it is not unusual in the work I do in the field of human rights that truth may take years, if not decades, to be revealed. In the case of Jamal, in spite of what the Saudi government, the Saudi state, and the Saudi team were planning to do, they wanted something very secretive. They never expected that Atice Sengis will be waiting for Jamal outside. They never expected that the consulate will be under surveillance. I mean, all of those things have meant that a lot of truth has already been revealed, and I have no doubt that more truth will, will find their way to us eventually.
Well, thank you very much. Rasul Sardar, Yasin Aktay, and Agnes Kalamar, thank you for joining us at the TRT World Forum Digital Debates. We really enjoyed your observations and your insightful analysis. Thank you very much, and we say goodbye to all.
Thank you.